Okay, our first lizard variation is actually warrior 2 feet. So you take your feet into warrior 2 stance, and this is a lizard variation in my opinion, or some people call it a humble warrior variation. And from this position, I'll have you drag your feet toward each other and lift the hips up. Now we've done this in the immersion before, okay? So I'm just gonna simply give you a little more details about what's happening. If we look more from the front of this pose, you see my thigh bone in this case is actually externally rotated in the hip socket, and it externally rotates even more as I bow my pelvis down. So long as my knee stays rotating out, or my thigh bone stays rotating out, a better way of saying it, that means if my pelvis tips forward, this would be the equivalent of my thigh bone externally rotating in the hip socket. It's a lot easier here because you're utilizing gravity in order to do that. Now, eventually we'd love to have the strength to externally rotate like this. So we'll build up strength like that as well, but for now, let's stretch the hips in this position here. So you see my hands are wide. My back inner thigh, while we've been here, has been active the whole time and getting stronger and also getting tired of this position. My front buttocks is pressing down through the heel. That's activating my external rotators to roll the right thigh bone outward against the pelvis, which is already bowing forward. And if I can do both of those things in this position, I'm gonna increase my external range of motion, no doubt. Okay. And let's heel toe the right foot out to the right, our next variation of lizard pose. Move your hips up and back like so, so your groins are not all the way down, and your torso a little to the right so that you can clear, you're not resting on your right thigh. So your right leg's gonna rotate a little bit out and take your elbows down. Now, from this position, gently start to press your right foot down into the ground, but spin the thigh bone out. So what I mean by spin the thigh bone out is if you look at my right toes, see my foot is a little turned out. I don't mean spin it all the way out that you're collapsing. Just don't let the knee kind of wing in like this right now. Sometimes I ask you on purpose for that. Right now we're not doing that on purpose. But the hips are lifted. You're trying to let the pelvis kind of melt towards the ground while pressing the right heel down. I am pulling my back knee towards the front foot, which is gonna keep my groins happy in the back thigh. I'm sure you're wondering, can I use blocks for this? Absolutely, you can place your forearms on blocks. Some of you are gonna feel this more in the hamstrings than anything else, or a muscle called the adductor magnus, which is where the hamstrings are essentially, but more towards the inner leg. It's a big stretch for that. We're gonna add a lizard variation on here. That I call this a lizard variation because it's very similar to lizard pose, where you actually try to get your armpit down towards the shin where your knee is out to the side. Some of you, this can be like virtually impossible, so don't freak out that you can't do it. Just kind of bend the elbows and bow like this. It's totally more accessible. Some of you, of course, will be able to, and great. Okay, the leg is rotating outward. This is really a good prep for both Agni Stambhasana and for lotus pose, because you're already kind of getting towards both of those positions with extreme external rotation in the left hip. Another variation of lizard, bring your back knee in. This time, place your foot on a block, and you're gonna turn your back toes in. This is similar, it's kind of a combination of a number of the ones that we've done so far. Okay, see my back foot, instead of being like kind of normal, spun in. Gonna help me bow to the inside. And some of you can actually intentionally rotate your thigh bone out a little bit. You can't really see it, but actually I'll show you my shin here. Give you a little more of the angle. So you see my thigh, instead of being upright now, it's starting to rotate out. That's gonna kind of give a deeper stretch to the deep glutes as I bow forward more. Okay, but you see my big toe is still pressing into the ground. That's an articulation of the ankle again, rather than just I'm not rolling like this, which does nothing at the hip. It's just rolling the ankle out, which doesn't help me at my hip at all. Doesn't help my ankle either. So in this position here, this is a variation of lizard that I really love to take for lotus preparations.